Hello and welcome back to our study of Peninei Halacha, the teachings of Rabbi Eliezer Melamed, Shlita. Here we are at the end of the week. So good to be back up and learning again. And please continue davening for Chaylei Tzva Agana Yisrael, or for Shalema for those who need. Safe return of all of our hostages. Our learning is dedicated in memory of Saren Daniel Shimon ben Sharon, Harav Daron Sharon, and Hebrew name was Sharon, but she's known as Shelley, Rabbanit Shelley, Hashem Yekum Dama. And of course, heading into next week where we will celebrate after we observe Yom HaZikaron, then Yom HaTzmaut. So today, a very, very difficult question that arises. It's been debated for years and years, and unfortunately, it's Inyan Idioma. Ha'im lichana l'schitat mechablim l'man hatzalat chatuf. She'ela, here's the question. B'meshach kiyuma shel hamedina, iru mikrim shebehem mechablim chatfu azurchim l'chaylim, ve'ayamo, shem l'shachrer mechablim rabim mibatei hasor shelanu, yirtzechu asechatufim shebiyadam. So the question is, again, unfortunately, all too real and all too painful, but over the years of the Medina, what's happened is that sometimes some terrorists who have kidnapped civilians or soldiers and have tortured them and have threatened that if we don't release many, many terrorists that we are holding in jails, in Israeli jails, they will kill the hostages. Hash'ela, האם על פי ההלכה צריך להיאנוס לתביעתם לשחרר מחבלים רבים כדי להציל חיי יהודי, או שאין להיאנוס לסחטנוסם? Question is this, do we do it or not? Do we give in to the demands to save one life of a Jew and giving up many terrorists, or no? Teshuvah. So here's the answer. This is Rav Melamed's sort of al regal achas. Again, a very, very complicated study, which one could spend hours and hours debating, if not days or weeks or months. B'halachos hakadomos lamanu, we learned in previous halachos, shekechlal asu lichana l'schitas chotim. Chasher ashav nimtza besakanas nefashos muchshit nechleku aposkim. So we saw that, of course, we don't give an exorbitant sum to release captives, again, to prevent further episodes from taking place, but when it becomes life-threatening, well, then that's a different story, and we saw that that's a machlokas. Ulam kol za'amar dafke v'poshim regilim. But this is talking about regular sinners. Shekol cheftzam lahaviach mamon, where they're only interested, meaning the captors are only interested in money. Ach kasher midubar b'matzav shel milchama, b'tamedes b'einenu l'bein ha'mechablim. But we're talking about a persistent war between us and terrorists. He says we cannot give in to any demands. Because if we give in, our enemies will see this as a clear sign of weakness. It will elevate their morale. And they will only encourage them to continue and to increase these types of terrorist activities. And what's going to happen after they get this morale boost? They're just going to recruit more terrorists. And furthermore, he says that those who go out to harm us, terrorists that want to inflict pain upon us, they're not worried about their future because they're going to say, oh, it's okay, I'll be released as some sort of prisoner exchange deal. And if we release mechablim, terrorists, in a deal to get back one of ours, who knows what's to say what they're going to be in the future. I'm going to add in my own point right here that we saw that the many, I think it was 1,000, if not more, I don't recall the exact number, that were released in the Gilad Shalit deal, one of them became the mastermind of October 7th. So Rav Melamed's point is very clear here, that if we release terrorists, they're just going to continue the activity and it's just going to actually lead to more harm. L'chein, Limros ha'ke'ev shebadavar, not to think that the Rav or anyone in this camp is callous to this. And he says, understanding the pain of this issue. Ein lihichana l'sachtanus l'shalem avur hachatuf yoser min hakamol mikrim ka'ela hainu adam tmuras adam. He says we should not give any sort of elevated price. It's 1 for 1. Should never be 1,000 for 1. Anything like that. Haklalhu shebe'es milchama ein nichnan l'shum tachtiv shel ha'oyev v'im tafsu afilu shavoy echad shalonu yotzim avrim l'chama kadei l'hatzilo. So the principle is that in a time of a war, we're not going to give in to the enemy. And if they take even one captive from ours, we'll go to war over it. Shekein matzina b'Torah, because the pasuk Bamidbar says, "Vayishma haKnani melech Arad Yoshev v'neged kibel Yisrael derech ha'atarim, v'lechem Yisrael v'yish b'menu shevi." We'll read it later in the summer. The Knani, they heard, and they went to war with us. V'amr chachamim, and Rashi mentions there, Shirak shivcha achas tafsim Yisrael. They only took one maidservant. And in order to save them, we didn't discuss any deals. We just went to war. Also in Shmuel Aleph, Perek Lamed, David HaMelech went to war without having conversations because of women that were taken captive. And even if the enemies only come to take straw, fodder, Yotzim Kenegdim L'chama will go to war with them. Because if we give it on a small thing, they're just going to keep taking more and more. You give a finger, they'll take the whole hand. And this is regarding persistent enemies, terrorists who are continuing their war forever. But if we're talking about a war that's going to end, then you could have an even prisoner exchange if it's going to end the war. Knowing that we, of course, even though we have many more captives, so this is talking about, let's say, we have battle. We take captives, they take captives in battle. And normally, to end a war, when you have a ceasefire, both sides will just return. Okay, this is who I took captive, we're going to return. That's how you took captive, we're going to return. That's normal. And they're going to start a new war, it's going to be based on new things. But what we're talking about is if our enemies make a condition, we'll end this war if you give back the terrorists that you took 2 years ago and 3 years ago and 4 years ago, or those serving 5 life terms. That, Rav Melamed says, is against Halacha. Very, very difficult. And you'll see the splits in the camps in Israel today regarding this issue. And I have a lot to say about it. Perhaps it's not for this forum. I've mentioned it in private, but I think it's worthy of looking into different thoughts on this matter. Again, we're talking about from Halacha. Now, again, we can't fault anybody who is going through the hell that they're going through over 200 days without their loved ones, not knowing if they're alive or if they're dead, but certainly not having their bodies. But a person who is a Yirei Shemayim, person who is God-fearing, will adhere to this principle, God willing, even despite the tremendous challenges. A very, very difficult shaila, and one that, thankfully, you nor I have to paskin, but certainly one that we can relate to, and we could share the pain of those who have to deal with this question. So, sad to end the week on this note, but perhaps appropriate as we approach Yom HaZikaron, with the numbers that are just staggering, the numbers that have been added this year alone, and only because we have a Yom HaZikaron can we have a Yom HaTzmaut. So, I hope everyone has a peaceful and restful Shabbos. Thank you so much for learning with us this week. And please continue davening for Chali Tzvah Gnei Yisrael, for Shalem L'Chalam Yisrael, safe return of our hostages, and Le'ili Nishmat, Sarah and Daniel Shimon Ben Harav Daron V'Sheli Hashem Yakom Damo. Again, Shabbat Shalom to everyone. We'll see you here next week.